The lost moment at Central Station. The afternoon rush at Grand Central Station moved like a living river. Thousands of people flowed through the marble halls, their footsteps creating a symphony of purpose and haste. Among them, Victoria Sterling stood perfectly still, her white cane held loosely in her trembling hand. She had lost her assistant somewhere in the crowd 20 minutes ago. Margaret had stepped away to buy coffee, promising to return quickly. But the station's chaos had swallowed her voice, and now Victoria felt more alone than she had in years. The sounds crashed over her in overwhelming waves, shoe heels clicking against marble, announcements echoing from speakers, conversations blending into meaningless noise. Her usually sharp senses felt scrambled by the intensity of it all. Victoria wore an elegant navy dress that spoke of money and careful styling. Her long auburn hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and diamond earrings caught the light. But beneath her composed exterior, panic was rising like water in her chest. She tried to remember the path back to the main information desk, but every direction sounded the same. The familiar landmarks she relied on had vanished in the sea of movement around her. Across the great hall, Noah Rivera adjusted his worn backpack and checked his phone. His community college classes had ended early, giving him time to pick up his little sister Ruby from her after-school program. Money was always tight in their family, but Noah worked extra shifts at the campus bookstore to help his mother pay the bills. Ruby skipped beside him, her curly hair bouncing with each step. She wore a bright yellow jacket that made her look like a small sunbeam in the crowd. "Noah, look!" Ruby tugged on his sleeve, pointing toward the center of the hall. "That lady looks scared." Noah followed her gaze and saw Victoria. Even from a distance, he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held her cane like an anchor in a storm. "She's blind, Ruby," Noah said gently, "and I think she's lost." Ruby's eyes widened with understanding. At 8 years old, she possessed the kind of pure empathy that adults often lose. "We should help her." Noah felt the familiar pull of wanting to do the right thing, even when it might be complicated. His mother had raised him to notice when others needed help, regardless of who they were or where they came from. They approached slowly, Noah's sneakers quiet against the marble. When they were close enough, he spoke in a calm, clear voice. "Excuse me, miss. Are you okay? You look like you might need some help." Victoria's head turned toward his voice. Relief flooded her face so quickly that it almost broke Noah's heart. She had been waiting for someone, anyone, to notice her distress. "I've lost my assistant," Victoria said, her voice cultured but shaky. "I'm supposed to meet my car outside, but I can't remember which exit we used." Ruby stepped forward without hesitation. "Don't worry. We know this place really well. Noah comes here for school, and I come here to visit the ceiling with all the stars." Despite her anxiety, Victoria smiled at the child's sweet voice. "The ceiling is beautiful, isn't it? I remember it from when I was young." Noah noticed how Victoria's grip on her cane relaxed slightly. "Would you like us to help you find your assistant? Or we could walk you to whichever exit you need." "The Park Avenue exit," Victoria said gratefully. "My driver should be waiting there." As they began to walk, Ruby naturally took Victoria's free hand. The simple gesture seemed to ground Victoria completely. She had forgotten how comforting human touch could be when it came without expectation or agenda. "I'm Ruby, and this is my brother Noah. What's your name?" "Victoria," she replied, allowing herself to be guided through the crowd. Noah stayed close on her other side, not touching but ready if she needed support. He noticed how people moved around them, most too busy to pay attention, others staring briefly before looking away. "You smell like flowers," Ruby observed happily, "like the ones in the park where we have picnics." Victoria laughed, a real sound of joy that surprised her. "It's jasmine perfume. My grandmother used to wear it." As they walked, Noah found himself genuinely curious about this elegant woman who seemed so different from anyone in his usual world. "Do you come to Grand Central often?" "More than I'd like," Victoria admitted. "Business meetings, social obligations. My father has many interests in the city." Ruby swung their joined hands gently. "Do you live in one of those big houses like in movies?" "Ruby," Noah warned softly, but Victoria didn't seem offended. "I do, actually. It's very big and very quiet, sometimes too quiet." They had almost reached the Park Avenue exit when Victoria's phone rang. She fumbled for it in her purse, nearly dropping her cane in the process. Noah steadied her elbow gently. "Margaret," Victoria answered. The relief in her voice was audible. "Where are you? I've been so worried." The conversation was brief. Her assistant had been delayed by a medical emergency with another client and was still 20 minutes away. Victoria's face fell as she ended the call. "Your assistant can't come yet?" Noah asked. "She's helping someone else who needed her more," Victoria said, trying to hide her disappointment. "I should wait by the information desk." Ruby tugged on Victoria's hand. "You could wait with us. We're going to get hot chocolate from the cart outside. Mom gave us money for a treat." Victoria hesitated. She wasn't used to casual invitations from strangers. Her world was carefully scheduled and controlled. But something about these two felt safe and genuine. "I don't want to impose on your family time," she said carefully. "You're not imposing," Noah said simply. "Besides, Ruby would be heartbroken if you said no. She's already planning to tell you about every single star on that ceiling." Victoria found herself nodding. "Hot chocolate sounds wonderful." They found a small table outside the station where Ruby could point up at the sky and chatter about clouds while they waited. Victoria sat with her hands wrapped around the warm cup, listening to the child's innocent observations about the world. "The buildings here are so tall, they look like they're holding up the sky," Ruby said. "Do you remember what buildings look like, Victoria?" It was a question that might have hurt from anyone else, but from Ruby it felt like pure curiosity. "I do remember," Victoria said softly. "I lost my sight when I was 16. Before that, I loved looking at the architecture in the city." Noah watched her face as she spoke. There was sadness there, but also strength. "What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" "A car accident," Victoria said simply. "I was with my mother. She didn't make it." The weight of that revelation settled over their small table. Ruby reached over and patted Victoria's arm with the instinctive comfort that children offer. "I'm sorry about your mom," Ruby said quietly, "but I'm glad you're here with us now." Victoria felt tears prick at her eyes. When was the last time someone had spoken to her with such honest warmth? Noah's phone buzzed with a text from their mother asking when they'd be home. Reality began to creep back in. This moment of unexpected connection would have to end. "I should probably head home soon," Noah said reluctantly. "Ruby has homework, and I have a shift at work tonight." Victoria nodded, understanding but feeling a strange sadness at the thought of returning to her usual isolation. "Of course. You've both been so kind. More kind than you know." Ruby suddenly stood up with determination. "Victoria, do you want to come have dinner with us? Mom always makes extra, and she loves meeting new people." Noah's eyes widened. Their small apartment was nothing like the world Victoria probably came from. "Ruby, I'm not sure that's—" But Victoria was already shaking her head with regret. "That's such a sweet invitation, but I couldn't. Your mother doesn't even know me." "She would like you," Ruby insisted with the certainty of childhood. "She says you can tell if people are good just by listening to them, and you're good." At that moment, Margaret appeared, slightly out of breath and full of apologies. Victoria's brief escape from her controlled world was ending. As Victoria stood to leave, she turned back to Noah and Ruby one more time. "Thank you," she said, and her voice carried more emotion than she intended. "Both of you. You gave me something I didn't know I was missing." Ruby hugged her quickly. Will we see you again? Victoria hesitated. In her world, chance encounters like this didn't continue. But looking at these two people who had shown her such simple kindness, she found herself wanting to break her own rules. I hope so, she said softly. As Margaret led her toward the waiting car, Victoria could hear Ruby chattering excitedly to Noah about their new friend. And for the first time in years, she went home with her heart feeling fuller instead of emptier. The car pulled away from Grand Central, but Victoria's mind remained at that small table, wrapped in the warmth of unexpected human connection. The bold request that changes everything. 3 days had passed since the encounter at Grand Central Station, but Victoria Sterling couldn't stop thinking about Noah and Ruby. She sat in her father's study, listening to him discuss quarterly reports with his assistant. But her mind kept drifting to Ruby's laughter and Noah's gentle voice. The Sterling mansion felt more suffocating than usual. Every room echoed with emptiness, despite being filled with priceless art and furniture. Victoria had tried to return to her normal routine of physical therapy, music lessons, and carefully scheduled social obligations. But everything felt hollow now. James Sterling noticed his daughter's distraction immediately. At 55, he had built a business empire through his ability to read people and situations. Victoria was his most precious investment, and he protected her accordingly. Victoria, you seem distant today, he said after dismissing his assistant. Is everything all right? Victoria turned toward her father's voice, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her teacup. I met some people at the station a few days ago. They were kind to me. James felt a familiar protective instinct rise in his chest. Since Victoria's accident 8 years ago, he had carefully controlled her social circle. Too many people had tried to use her condition or his wealth for their own purposes. What kind of people? He asked carefully. A college student and his little sister. They helped me when Margaret was delayed. Victoria's voice grew warmer as she spoke. The little girl, Ruby, she was so sweet. She invited me to dinner with their family. James frowned. Strangers approached you? Victoria, you know how dangerous that can be. They weren't dangerous, Father. They were genuine. Ruby held my hand and told me about the stars on Grand Central's ceiling. Noah made sure I was safe without making me feel helpless. The longing in his daughter's voice concerned James. Victoria had always been his compliant, protected princess. But lately, she seemed restless, searching for something he couldn't provide. What are their names? He asked. Noah and Ruby Rivera. Noah goes to community college and works at a bookstore. They live in Queens. James made mental notes. A background check would be simple enough. But Victoria's next words caught him off guard. I want to see them again, Father. Victoria, that's not how your social circle works. We have established friends, safe relationships. Safe and empty, Victoria interrupted, surprising them both with her boldness. When was the last time someone talked to me because they wanted to, not because they had to? James studied his daughter's face. At 24, Victoria was beautiful and intelligent, but she lived in a carefully constructed bubble. Perhaps it was time to consider expanding her world, but only under his terms. Tell me more about this Noah, he said thoughtfully. Victoria's face lit up. He was so respectful. He didn't grab my arm or speak loudly like I was deaf instead of blind. He just walked beside me and made sure I felt safe. And Ruby... Victoria smiled genuinely. She has this pure way of seeing the world. She made me remember what it felt like to just be happy. That evening, James Sterling made some phone calls. By morning, he had a complete file on Noah Rivera, 22 years old, studying business at Queens Community College, working part-time to help support his mother and sister. No criminal record, good grades, clean social media presence. Most importantly, Noah had no idea who Victoria really was. James found Victoria in the garden, listening to the fountain while she ate breakfast. Her face had that distant look again, the one that meant she was thinking about the Rivera siblings. "Victoria, I've been thinking about your new friends," he said, settling into the chair beside her. "Have you?" There was hope in her voice that made James's chest tighten. "I want to meet them." Victoria turned toward him, surprised. "Really? But not here. Not yet. I want to see them in their natural environment first. Observe how they really behave when they think nobody important is watching." "Father, they're not performing for anyone. They're just good people." James smiled at his daughter's naivety. "Then they won't mind proving it." 2 days later, James Sterling walked into the small bookstore where Noah worked. He wore casual clothes instead of his usual business suits, hoping to blend in while he observed Victoria's new friend. The store was cramped but organized, filled with the comfortable smell of paper and coffee. Noah stood behind the counter, helping an elderly woman find a cookbook. James watched him patiently explain different options, even walking her to the shelf to show her the books. "Excuse me?" James approached the counter after the woman left. "I'm looking for something for my daughter. She's interested in stories about people overcoming challenges." Noah's face brightened immediately. "That's a great genre. How old is your daughter?" 24. She's been through some difficult times recently." Noah nodded thoughtfully and led James to a section near the back. "These are some of my favorites. This one is about a woman who started her own business after losing her job. This one is about someone who learned to paint after losing their sight." James picked up the second book, studying Noah's face. "My daughter is blind. Do you think this would be appropriate?" "Absolutely," Noah said without hesitation. "The author doesn't focus on the disability as a limitation. She writes about discovering new ways to create beauty. It's really inspiring." As Noah rang up the purchase, James made his decision. "Actually, I have an unusual request. My daughter has been feeling isolated lately. She mentioned meeting a young man and his sister at Grand Central Station who were very kind to her. I don't suppose you know anything about that?" Noah's eyes widened with recognition. "Victoria? That's your daughter? How is she?" The genuine concern in Noah's voice told James everything he needed to know. "She's been thinking about you and Ruby quite a bit. In fact, that's why I'm here." James pulled out a business card and handed it to Noah. The young man's face went pale as he read, "James Sterling, Sterling Industries." "You're the billionaire James Sterling," Noah said quietly. "Victoria is your daughter." "She is. And she's been happier thinking about your afternoon together than she's been in months. Which brings me to my request." Noah waited, clearly nervous now. "I want to hire you, sir. Not for Sterling Industries, for Victoria. She needs someone in her life who sees her as a person first. Someone who can help her discover independence without compromising her safety." Noah shook his head immediately. "Mr. Sterling, I can't take money for being Victoria's friend. That's not how friendship works. I'm not asking you to be a paid friend. I'm asking you to be a companion, a guide. Help her explore the city, try new experiences, live life beyond the walls I've built around her." "Why me?" James smiled. "Because in 3 days of background checks and surveillance, you've proven to be exactly what you appeared to be. Honest, kind, and genuinely caring. My daughter trusts you, and Victoria doesn't trust easily." Noah was quiet for a long moment, processing the enormity of what was being asked. "What about Ruby? Victoria connected with her, too." "Ruby is welcome as well. In fact, I think Victoria could use a little sister figure in her life." "And if I say no?" "Then you say no, and I'll respect that. But Victoria will be disappointed, and frankly, so will I." Noah looked at the business card again, then back at James Sterling. "What exactly would this job involve?" "Taking Victoria places she's never been, showing her experiences she's missed, helping her build confidence in navigating the world, being the friend she's never had the chance to have. And you'd be okay with me taking your daughter all over the city?" James laughed. "Noah, My daughter has been confined to a very small, very safe world for 8 years. She's brilliant, capable, and stronger than she knows. But she's also been protected to the point of isolation. I think it's time she had the chance to discover who she really is. Noah thought about Victoria's smile when Ruby had taken her hand. He thought about the loneliness he had heard in her voice when she mentioned her quiet house. Can I think about it overnight? Of course. But Noah? James handed him a second card with a phone number. Call this number tonight. Victoria has been asking about you both every day since you met. I think she deserves to hear your voice. That evening, Noah sat in his family's small kitchen with his mother and Ruby, explaining the impossible situation he found himself in. A billionaire wants to pay you to hang out with his daughter? His mother asked incredulously. It's not that simple, Mom. He wants me to help her become more independent. Take her places, show her new experiences. Ruby bounced in her chair excitedly. Can I come? Victoria said I was good company. Noah's mother, Carmen Rivera, studied her son's face. You like this girl, don't you? And I don't mean the money. Noah nodded slowly. There's something about her, Mom. She's lonely but not bitter, strong but vulnerable. And she treated Ruby like she was the most important person in the world. Then call her, Carmen said simply. Rich or poor, everyone deserves to have real friends. At 9 o'clock that night, Victoria's phone rang. When she heard Noah's voice, her entire face transformed with joy. Noah, I was hoping you'd call. Your father came to see me today, Noah said carefully. He told me. He said he likes you. Victoria, he offered me a job to spend time with you, help you explore the city. There was a pause. And what did you tell him? I told him I needed to think about it, but honestly, I wanted to ask you something first. What? If I said yes, would it be because you want me to or because your father arranged it? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Both, she said honestly. I haven't stopped thinking about you and Ruby since we met. I keep wishing I could have stayed for dinner that night, or that I could call you just to talk. I've never felt that way about anyone. Noah felt something warm settle in his chest. Then I guess I have my answer. You'll do it? On one condition. This isn't just a job for me, Victoria. I genuinely want to be your friend. If that ever changes for either of us, we end the arrangement immediately. Deal, Victoria said, and Noah could hear her smiling through the phone. Ruby wants to know when she can see you again. Victoria laughed, the sound bright and musical. Tomorrow? Your father said he'd send a car to pick you both up. We could start with lunch and see where the day takes us. As they said goodnight, both Victoria and Noah felt something shifting in their worlds. For Victoria, it was the first taste of real freedom in years. For Noah, it was the beginning of something he couldn't yet name, but already treasured. James Sterling listened from the hallway outside Victoria's room, hearing his daughter laugh with genuine happiness for the first time since before her accident. His bold request had been risky, but seeing Victoria's joy made it clear he had made the right choice. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new possibilities for all of them.